Hey, yo, how's it going? This is J Muzacz here from the home studio. Here on behalf of Waterloo Greenway's Waterloo-In-Place online event series. A little bit about Waterloo Greenway. It's a local nonprofit working with the city of Austin to create 35 acres of connected green space in downtown Austin along Waller Creek. Thanks for joining the class. So a little about me. If you don't know me, I'm J Muzacz, although a lot of you probably do because you're seeing this on Facebook and Instagram. So I'm here to share my home experience making mosaic. Normally I work out of Something Cool Studios, and that's over on East Cesar Chavez. Hold on, let me turn the music down real quick. All right, you gotta bear with me. This is my first time live streaming, so yeah, we'll get through this together. Yeah, normally I work out of the Mosaic Workshop home at Something Cool Studios, and it's on East Cesar Chavez. But obviously, with the stay-home shelter-in-place going on at the moment, we're all kind of improvising and doing what we can from home, with a minimal movement. So today I want to kind of give you just a basic introduction into mosaic with my own personal experience. I'm actually pretty new to the medium. I've been doing public art and murals for going on 16 years, but I've only been doing mosaic for the last 2 or 3. But I dove head first in, and I found some local mentors to help me along the way, and I'll talk a lot about them throughout the class. And I also researched some people doing work abroad and all over the world in different kind of mosaic techniques. So obviously with just an hour or less than an hour in this class, mosaic is a time-consuming, meditative process. Anybody who's done it once knows you're not going to whip out a mosaic super fast. So in the event of saving time and sort of trying to inspire people to do things with what they might have at home, and also in the vein of Earth Day that was just this Wednesday, and it's actually Earth Month. It's the whole month this year, the whole month of April. So I wanted to show you how to recycle and use some things you may already have at home, some waste products, be it broken tile, glass, bottle caps, paper, CDs, who listens to those anymore, you name it. So we're going to do our best to just kind of give you lots of ideas today. I don't expect you to make anything along with me. A lot of the things that I made that I'll show you closer on the table here, and some sample projects from previous mosaic workshop participants, those are going to take hours, okay? Sometimes days. Some of the murals I'm going to show you that we've worked on have taken literal months, studio process and then on-site as well. So you kind of got to just accept that first with mosaic. It's a time-consuming process. So before I start showing you around my workshop and getting into the nitty-gritty of the materials and the tools, I want to talk a little bit more about how I personally got into mosaic. And I've got to thank Heather Kruger of the former Austin School of Mosaic Art and her colleague Diane Sonnenberg, who are 2 of Austin's finest mosaic artists. Diane and Heather both have helped me along the way from the very beginning. My first taste of glass was actually Heather coming out to my school, Skybridge Academy, where I teach art 2 days a week in Dripping Springs, and doing a pixel art workshop, not unlike this one that I'll show you here and here. So these are done with small 8mm tiles. This was done by a previous workshop participant, James. He actually hand cut those tiles at a 3/4 inch. But basically, Heather came out to my school and facilitated with junior high and high school students a 2 to 3 day project where we made something kind of like this. A very simple pixelated mosaic with no cutting, just colored squares on a backing art substrate. So after that, I kind of saw the potential with glass and with ceramic to do the work that I was already painting. I was painting in a style that's kind of like stained glass. I also went to and did some workshops myself as a student with Jim Barry's Blue Moon Glassworks Studio, and Lisa and the other instructors there who were fantastic. That's how I kind of got more into stained glass and the lead and copper foil techniques, the traditional techniques. So I just kind of immersed myself in glass, ceramic, mosaic, stained glass, and then I started to go down this rabbit hole of mosaic folk art as well. I had actually traveled to Philadelphia a couple years ago on a mural project, a painted mural, and I ran across Isaiah Zagar's amazing Smith Street complex. It's what started in his home on his gate, kind of took over a whole neighborhood in Philadelphia, and anybody who's been there, it's called the Magic Gardens, it's incredible. It's an immersive experience. It's decades of Isaiah's travels and putting his travel findings and broken plates and bottles and things he's brought from all over the world back into the walls there at the Magic Gardens. So I realized you can kind of, mosaic, a lot of big-time mosaic artists in public art, they break the rules, So within loose constructs, the possibilities are kind of infinite, if you have the patience, of course. Another one of my mentor idols that I had the pleasure of meeting through a conference or a workshop she was giving at the School of Mosaic Art is Laurel True. And this is her book here. She's a world-renowned community artist who does mosaic work in Haiti and France and Turkey and New Orleans and you name it. I don't even know where she is right now. She's traveling the world, but I'm sure she's hunkered down working on some beautiful mandalas and facilitating community in any way she can. So her model is more of the participatory, and one that I've done a lot in my painted murals is getting the community who are non-artists to be involved in the project, whether it be through design, brainstorming, the concept, and actually into the fabrication, actually making the thing, coming out and getting dirty, painting. And so she does the same with mosaic. She actually wrote this book all about how to facilitate those kind of projects. And it's just a project journal from a project she did in Haiti in 2017 that helped me immensely when I went out to do it a few years later. Another one of my local mentors is James Talbot, who is in this year Austin Art in Public Places book. It's right there on the inside cover. He's done a number of murals around town, large scale, sculptural, and his house is a work of art in its own right. It's been on the cover of the Weird Austin Homes book, and he does tours. You can hit him up on Facebook and get a private tour with a small group. So he is another one who's got these crazy ideas, and he's also very much so into green living and recycling and zero waste. And that's a passion of mine as well. One of my big qualms with painted murals actually is the spray paint. It's not very sustainable. It's not very good for the environment in terms of the can waste, the aerosol. So I've been looking to transition to something, A, more sustainable, B, more permanent, in that mosaic will last a lifetime. It'll last the life of that structure pretty much. It's not going to chip, peel, or fade like paint will. It's not going to need a touch-up, probably, not much anyway. Maybe a little grout, but basically it's going to last a long, long time. As you know, there are mosaics that we've unearthed from ancient Greece and Rome and Turkey that are thousands of years old, and so that's the kind of artwork that I wanted to transition to making, things that are going to last for the community and yeah. So let's see, any other? Yeah, I'll get into a couple far-flung artists that I've just come across. I'm gonna get closer to the camera so hopefully you can see these. There you go. Okay, good to see you guys watching. So here's a piece by Ed Chapman. It's actually made out of record vinyl, if you can believe that. All those different colors of records. Here's a piece by, now I'm showing you these, keep in mind that these are going to be mosaic or mosaic related, okay? I'm showing you another guy, he had a live stream yesterday at Art on 5th, John Morse. I'm a big fan of his. He does this with paper, found paper. Okay, you get up close and you see that it's all recycled paper. I really love this one. Kevin Ciampini, all made out of middle fingers. How about that? Yeah. Here's another Ed Chapman piece, record vinyl. He also works in pennies. See that portrait done in different shades of pennies. Another semi-local artist is Matt Tumlinson here out of San Antonio. He does these out of bullets. So all you zombie apocalypse gun hoarding, bullet toting out there for the for the coronavirus, you know, now you got something else to do with those bullets that you didn't need. Let's make some mosaic art. We got a couple more locals. John Yancey. This is a piece I'm sure you're well aware of if you're in Austin. This piece is a beautiful one depicting old East Austin, the musical roots there. Ceramic tile. There's Diane Sonnenberg, one of my great mentors, with a piece that she made all of mirror, auctioned off for $250,000. Jay Leno auctioned that piece off for $250,000 for charity. And there's one of her recent contemporary sculptural pieces, just beautiful. You can actually see these when we open back up at City Hall People's Gallery. It's giving you lots and lots of ideas about different ways to approach mosaic. Here's another one of my favorites. I've become good friends with her. Stephanie DiStefano. She's the one behind the mirror mosaic pieces on Cesar Chavez, the Gandhi mural, the Virgin Mary here. She used to have the Flamingo Ranch, and she did the Larry Monroe Bridge. Ceramic, mirror, handmade ceramic and porcelain. A lot of custom pieces in her work. She and Laurel were actually both trained in part, or did a residency, what have you, with Isaiah Zagar up in Philadelphia. So, let me show you a couple more. I'll get into some of my works that I'm going to show you around a little closer back here. You can see that piece on the left is actually made out of 6,000 tiny little. Here, I'm just going to take you over there and see it. We're going mobile. All right. So I'll show you this piece here. This is kind of what I'm working on right now are these pixelated murals. Not murals, these are studio pieces, much like I did murals with the larger tiles, but just lots of little tiles that then create sort of a photorealistic image, and it's all grout in and concrete in. So you can see that. And this is the piece I did for the Stay Home PSA a couple weeks ago, and we're encouraging people to do so, and hopefully everybody still is and watching from there. That's just mirror and some subway tile, scrap subway tile I get from the tile shop. The Mosaic Workshop gave us some credibility and was able to walk in the tile shop and say, hey, you got any scrap tiles? You got any leftovers from last season? You got anything? And they were really cool. I showed them what we were up to, and they said, yeah, I mean, bring a trash can in. So they fill a bin up for us, and whenever it gets full of scraps, we'll go and pick it up. So it's all free material. The mirrors I get off of Craigslist usually for free or cheap. The cracked bathroom mirror and such people are trying to get rid of. And here's a smalty piece. This is actually my first smalty piece. That's the fine Mexican or Italian glass. Received that from Susan Ribnick, who has a stash here in town. It's really hard to get this stuff. Nobody really makes it locally. It's thick, it's nuanced, it's infinite colors, really beautiful glass to work with. So that's some of my recent work in terms of studio. And while we're moving around, I'll kind of show you the whole setup. I just got a 4x8 workbench here on caster wheels, so it rolls around really easily. I can sweep up. You make a huge mess with mosaic, the dust, the scraps, and then we got a couple other pieces here. There's a folding table. Here's a piece by another one of my favorite local Austin artists is Brian Joseph, the Bitey Man, and he. This is his first time doing mosaic as well, but his iconic yellow people with that yellow hat, the dancing folks, is just so joyful. He came to the workshop and did that. Just took right to it, obviously. If you're already an artist, you know, you've already got this stuff. It just comes second nature. He just had to learn the tools in the glass. Here's another beautiful piece, succulent, made by Debbie. She made 4 or 5 pieces, and she did this on mesh. So we're actually gonna install it outside on a Cesar Chavez storefront as soon as we can go out into the world again. You can see this piece is grout. It's on a different synthetic substrate. I'm going to talk about these here in just a moment. Bring this piece back. So these 2 pieces here were by another 2 workshop participants, James and Jerusha. In very different styles. You can see one sort of pixelated on the left and more abstract on the right. Layered the glass even. So you can really go about it any way you like. And then another piece here. This is a collaboration with another participant who didn't sign it, but lots of people came and gifted us works for the Cesar Chavez storefront. that we'll put up eventually. And a lot of these were made with these tiles here that I've OCD cataloged all the colors I can get from suppliers around the country, wholesalers. That's all the color spectrum there. These are 3/4 inch vitreous glass. Okay, and these are 10mm glass. They're already pre-cut in the squares and they have a beveled bottom so they can sit right in a grid or something. Now this is what, I gotta show you this one. This is my first mosaic. When I went and talked to Heather, pretty awesome, right there. When I went to talk to Heather at the School of Mosaic Art, she just sat me down and said, here's some glass and some nippers and some ceramic, and I was like, okay, I just sat down and got a feel for it, So I like to think I'm come a long way, but then I see that and I think maybe not. I don't know. There's a at-home mural in the distance there. That's another thing going on, but anyway. So I'll keep showing you around another couple of these pieces. This is the recent Einstein. I did them doing this small scale portrait series just with reused ceramic. Yeah, I got a bunch of these blues and grays and whites donated. A job just had some leftover ceramic boxes, and they know what we're up to. So the workshops that we gave are often for free or very low cost, and so we can give people all the materials they need because people are donating. So so I'm going to get into this here because it's going to be more of the process-based stuff. So I'll take a quick tour around here. So basically, for making mosaic, let's see. You've got your substrate, okay, and that's your backing. So the first step is kind of deciding what you're going to use, okay? This is MDF, particle board, really dense, really straight. It actually keeps its form more than wood. It doesn't warp or anything, so it's the density works in your favor, and it's smooth. It's easy to draw on. It's easy to glue to. Then you've got some synthetic backers. This is like the stuff you put in your shower. It's called Hydroban, and it's got like this foam in the middle, and it's got this super firm fiberglass on the edge, but it's very, very lightweight. This is a feather. You can't hardly tell, but it's like a feather. You can also draw on this too. Then you've got just normal wood. This is a design that one of our awesome mosaic participants, Chuck, drew, and we haven't got to finish yet. It's a Native American inspired design graphic, and that's just, you can see that's just some plywood sanded down. Some more rough plywood. You always want to sand the edges of these so you don't get splinters if you're going to use something like this. Scrap woods, all this stuff. I get salvaged this off of Craigslist too. Somebody had a construction job and had leftovers. I go and pick up some sheets, cut them up, and then there you go. Got to give another shout out to local business Austin Creative Reuse, where I got these bad boys. I got a whole box of these. These are like coaster bottoms, cork. And the cool thing about these is that's a project you could do in 30 minutes or an hour. Really, is a little, coaster size mosaic, kind of like the piece I just showed you over there. So it's not a firm backing. It's kind of flexible, but you could definitely use the glass and ceramic to firm it up. So then you've got your tesserae, and that's what you actually make the mosaic out of. Oh, I forgot one more backing, is the mesh. If you want to be a street artist, like Angry Cloud here in town, or like Space Invader, worldwide, doing ceramic and glass street art, you put on this fiberglass mesh, glue it in the studio, and then you go and paste up whole sections out in the street with your liquid nails or whatever. And a couple other oblong substrates, I haven't even gotten to these yet, are little terracotta pots. So you can mosaic on these, number plate, for your address, etc. So substrates kind of like whatever you can conceive of, you could probably mosaic. You could mosaic a chair, you can mosaic your house. You can mosaic just about anything with the right tools and materials. So get into the materials then. When you have your backing ready, you've got your tesserae, and you're going to have ceramic pieces here. Okay, these are already cut up. You're going to have, these are just some other, these come in these are really cool. Come in sheets, square foot sheets at Home Depot for like $3. And you get all these different colors of grays and whites. you've got more ceramic. You can see some of these being broken up. Made in Mexico usually, or sometimes in Italy. You got matte finish, gloss. Ceramic's gonna be really good for outdoor, permanent works. What are the relics they always find, and they have the Museum of Civilization? It's pots, right? Pottery, ceramics. So that stuff lasts. Then you've got glass, and these are tiny little 10 millimeter pieces. You can see some of the iridescence in there. Some have a beveled bottom for use in a grid, and others are just flat on both sides. They come already cut like that. These are 3/4 inch. This is my go-to for murals right now. It allows us to, at the right scale, allows us to get a good amount of detail, pixelated basically, and design it to be pixelated at the right scale. And that is pretty much what I'll use for. I'll show you a picture of it here in just a second. The Georgetown courthouse that I did last year. That was my first big mural. I didn't know how it would turn out. This is here in my dining room with all my colors laid out. This is a little sample of the wall when it's finished. You can see it's completely abstracted up close. Here's the installation. My good friends Mason and Carmen helping. Carmen's the co-founder of the Mosaic Workshop, by the way. Shout out to her. I'll show you a piece of hers in a second. And that's the install, and then that's the final piece. It's meant to just look like a Lake Georgetown vista, almost like a postcard photograph. But when you look up close, there's a lot of luminescence, there's a lot of iridescence, there's texture, there's copper going through some glass. So the cool effect for me is that illusion of, you see it from afar and you think, oh, is that a picture, is that painted, is that digital? And then you go up close and it's like, wow, it's digitally informed, but it's like digital impressionism, and it actually is handmade. And that was 54,000 some odd pieces of glass, just like this. It took 3 months to lay out in my dining room. So then you've got some more tesserae. You got your stained glass, and this stuff is very sharp. This is what gives us the most cuts in the workshops. You can get it $2 a pound scraps from Blue Moon Glass. You can get whole nice sheets of whatever color you want. A lot of this also has a nice transparency to it in case you're doing anything on a window. You can do glass on glass mosaic, so you can actually see through some of that stuff. Then here's some of my stash bags of smalty. That's that Italian style. This one's actually Mexican made, but it's a thick tortilla of glass that they make, and then they break it up into those chunks. And you got some fancy ocean glass in here. Some more Austin Creative Reuse finds is bottle caps. No, I didn't drink that much beer. CDs, old records, you name it. You can break those up, you can mosaic. Stephanie DiStefano, who I mentioned earlier, the mosaic mirror queen, she's doing her whole studio roof out of CDs right now. It's looking gorgeous. So again, the world is yours when it comes to mosaic. If you can imagine it and dream it up, you can probably make it. So there's another pixel piece I did just as a demo. That's like on that Hydroband board, coaster size. And this is another demo that Carmen Rangel did for the workshop. So yeah, you got your tesserae. So you got your substrate, your tesserae. Next, you got to look at your tools. Okay. So you've got your design tools, which are going to be like your pencil, marker, ruler, etc. Transfer paper. That's so you can kind of basically like transfer an image just by tracing over it. Then you've got some of your cutting tools here. Ruler, scissors, scoring tool, running pliers, Grozer pliers, wheeled nippers, because they're wheels. Ceramic scoring tool, end breaker, ceramic side biters here. Bite the side of the ceramic. I'll demo all these in a second. You got just kind of like a grinding tool, a sanding tool, diamond studded. Got your essential band-aids where you inevitably get cut. Your hammer just for a good old-fashioned destruction, just hitting a mirror, getting that bad luck, or breaking up some ceramic tiles. Then you got your spatula, your putty spatula, your old toothbrush. It's going to be used for cleaning your cavities, cleaning your grout out a little bit once it's drying. Then you got your grout float and your notch trowel. then you got your safety. Safety is very important. You got your goggles here. I'm already wearing glasses, so you got your goggles there. You've got your mask. I reuse these now because they are a hot commodity. You got your gloves, protect your hands, protect from the grout powders or epoxies or adhesives you might be using. If you don't get those on your hands, at least you don't want to leave it on your hands. So yeah, that's the safety. And the last thing you're going to need for your mosaic is your proper adhesive or grout. And there are lots of adhesives out there, lots of grouts out there. Weld Bond is my go-to. It's kind of like a thick Elmer's glue, but it goes on like a weld. It'll hold strong, bonds most anything. Like it says, dries relatively clear. You can use it on glass, ceramic, metal, wood, you name it, on the fiberglass mesh, you name it. So it's easy to work with, although it does take about an hour or two to dry to the touch usually, and then 24 hours to cure. Then you got your like silicone, your liquid nails, your Gorilla Glue. Those are all going to be faster drying, but obviously a little more expensive. And it just depends, if this is going to be a permanent outdoor piece, you're going to want to make sure that it's exterior grade, waterproof. And then same with your grouts. Your grouts today, I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this pre-mixed grout, which it doesn't have the best strength. I wouldn't probably use it on a permanent public art piece, but it's great for at-home projects. It saves you the mess of having to mix the grout. Basically, your grout's going to be a powder that you mix with water and let it slake, which is like just letting the chemicals do its thing. But you've got this powdery mess. That's why you need the mask, so you're not breathing in the grout. And this little guy just kind of alleviates all that. There's a tiny bit of epoxy in there too as an adhesive. So grout is like an adhesive and a sealer there at the same time. Okay, then you got your bucket of water. You got your sponges, your towels. I just use like old bath towels after they get stinky, or old t-shirts or something. So, aside from, if we look at all the supplies we just went over, I mean, you kind of have to buy the adhesive, right? I haven't figured out a way around that yet. You do need some basic tools, but a lot of your material thereafter is going to be free or cheap, okay, if you're clever. So mosaic art is like the original recycle art form, right, in my eyes. And that's kind of largely why I was drawn to it. Cool. So I'm going to demo some of these tools now, I guess. Okay. Actually, even before that, I'm going to talk you through the process. Yeah, I'm going to talk you through the process. So you see here, this is a sort of posterized, stylized portrait of Vincent van Gogh. Okay. His ear got chopped off. Oh. But this is, I do graphic design as well in my murals and illustration work and whatnot, and it helps if it facilitates my tactile handmade work. So what I did, and if this is in your wheelhouse, you can do it. If not, you can hand draw stuff. But what I did is I took an image of the famous painting and I stylized it in a way that I wanted to use as reference for the mosaic. Now there's going to be a lot of little details in here that I might not necessarily capture. Okay, this is again just a reference. It's like a jumping off point. You can see from step one here, and your picture backing, and then step two. This is a portrait of Bob Marley. You can kind of see when you zoom out. It's a little more simplified than this one here. It's not quite as detailed. So you have to use your artistic license, and I'm a proud card-carrying member of that. And you just kind of have to improvise as you go. Okay, so mosaic, like anything else, it's messy, it's imperfect. Okay, you're using scraps to begin with, so you do the best you can, and whatever your degree of patience will accommodate. Right, so you just do the best you can, and it doesn't need to look exactly like the original image, and that's kind of the point. You're the artist, you want to make it a painting, put a piece of you in there, so it could be unique. And then this is a finished piece. This one actually hasn't been grout yet. I'm going to show you that here in a minute. And then this is the finished Albert Einstein portrait that I did with just there's actually 7 colors in there: blues, dark blues, indigo, white, and gray. There's actually a little texture on the white. It's pretty cool. Oh, and then here's a shout out to Hope Hummingbird out of Philadelphia as well. She does these awesome porcelain pieces. She's very active in the street art community as well. She gifted me a couple of those last year. They're going to have a piece going up. The Grackle and the Dove actually is their new duo. They're going to have a piece going up in next to the Gray Ghost mural that we did over on East Cesar Chavez pretty soon here in the summer, hopefully. But yeah, this piece, oops, oopsie. Okay, can't turn from. So this piece, it's already ready to hang. It's got the D-ring on the back and the wire. That was just on plywood. It's already been grout. So that's like the finished piece. So if you're trying to do a portrait, this is kind of the process. Okay, so let's see. We'll go over a couple cutting demos. So I'm going to show you how to use, you already know how to use a pencil and marker. Okay, transfer paper is also pretty self-explanatory. But I will give you just a quick little demo here. Okay, so I'm going to show you the glass scoring tool and its partners, the running pliers here and the Grozer pliers. Okay, so let's see what's the best way to do this. Okay, I'm going to show you on this mirror here. Okay, so that is the mirror. Come up here. Okay, so we got the mirror here, and I'm just going to do a quick score. Okay, your scoring tool, it's got a little bit of oil in there. There's a cutting wheel just on the tip, and it does just what it's called. It's going to score the top of the glass. Okay, I'm going to do that on this little glass piece here. Actually, I can do the mirror here. So you go edge to edge, and you hear that zipper sound, and you can kind of see a score line there. The zipper sound is what you're going for. If you're not hearing that sound, you're either not pressing firm enough. It's probably the case. And then you've got your running pliers. They kind of have like a little frowny face, and you would just want to what's called run that score. And you put your pliers kind of over the middle, and you break down. So glass cuts way easier than you think. If you got a little tiny piece on the edge, you're getting those details, and you can't fit your running pliers to break it, then you can use your Grozer pliers and just pull it down. Just pull it down. Okay. I'll have to get these other tools over here. The last couple tools. These are both the same tools. These are just different versions of wheeled nippers. Okay. Lepinit is a good brand. Made in Taiwan. Ruby's another good brand. Just kind of depends on the weight and fit. The black one's a little lighter. These can also just cut up little pieces of glass kind of at random. Okay, just kind of random pieces. So for the detail work, in the little spots, the nippers are great. But that's pretty much all the tools you need for cutting glass right there. Okay, you can cut mirror the same way. Actually, kind of dug myself in a hole here. I can't get to this mirror right now. I got all this stuff on it. So but mirror cuts the same way. It's just a little thicker, so you might put a little more pressure in with the wheel nippers. Cool thing about these little pieces of glass here too is that you can nip those into sort of triangular shaped pieces, and then you can sort of do curves, or you get what's called a different andamento, or like a pattern of tile going, and so you can actually make curves out of straight shapes. You can cut those into quarters and get smaller tesserae going. Okay, so the wheel nippers are going to be a go-to. They're like my favorite, They're my favorite, especially with glass. Okay. So very easy to cut the glass. Once you have that. Small T is also basically the same way. It's going to be a little thicker, so you might need a stronger, wider wheel nippers, and it puts a little more work on your wrist and your hand. But you just cut that up into little blocks. Okay, that's how the dragon back there was made. So yeah, that's glass. That's really all there is to it in terms of cutting. Now I'm gonna get some ceramic going. So ceramic, there's going to be different weights, different depths. Porcelain, clay. Then, but you kind of you can do a similar process. A couple different tools. Okay. So basically, a big ceramic version of the wheel nippers is going to be your side biters here, and your side biters, they do just what they say they do. You could just bite on the side like that, just a little bit. And I'm not even really on the whole way. I could be, but just bite like that, and it breaks very easily. It just almost crumbles in some spots. If you're kind of going all the way across, you want a straight line, you can do that too. Okay, but it takes a little more effort on the wrist. Okay, then you can also. This is a scoring tool, much like the glass scoring tool, just a little more heavy-duty wheel here, and it's got a built-in breaker, so it's like 2-in-1. Okay, and these are actually available. Shout out to my local Home Depot. A lot of these basic tools are available there on the end cap of the tile aisle. So, if you're venturing out, or if you want to order in, you can order a basic little setup, for less than $100 and start making mosaic at your house. Same deal. You can score it. Score the top of the ceramic. Might not break quite as clean, but yeah, that one did well. Ceramic, it can be fickle. Things don't always break as you plan, and that's all right. You use the scraps to fill in the details. Everything except the dust is pretty useful in this game. So, yeah, and then you can go back once you have that sliver. You can go back and cut a bunch of smaller tesserae if you want. Rectangular shapes, triangular shapes. Triangular shapes are great for kind of filling in those little cracks and crevices. But then you've got your tesserae already. Some people even they'll just cut up a whole, if they know they want to use a bunch of blocks this size, you just cut a whole bowl full of these and then start your piece. Right? Some people cut as they go, so it just kind of depends what style you're going for. Okay. So that's your ceramic tesserae, glass. Yeah, so that's the cutting. Okay, and so let's say if I were starting this piece a little bit on the background here. Sorry, pardon my camera use there. Okay, so let's say I wanted to do some of this background here, right? Can a couple ways you can do it. You can eyeball it. One way I'm just kind of looking here. If I want this piece and I want to fill in a big chunk of that dark blue, you can also kind of cut up there. You can use a Sharpie. Then you just kind of trim around it. Okay. And you fit that piece in there. Okay. So, again, it's as much detail as you have patience for. I might just I'm going to forego this little piece and I just want to do a big chunk there. It's an artistic statement, right? It's bold. And then you use these little scraps and you kind of fill out these little sections here. Right. And you can get your light blue. And, this background in the actual painting is kind of wavy. And so maybe you want to reference that in your mosaic piece. And you cut a bunch of, I'm just cutting a bunch of sort of angular wavy pieces here. And then a lot of the fun part for me is the randomness of mosaic. It's I just cut all these pieces at random. Now I'm gonna see how the heck can I make sense out of this stuff? How can I make it look, the way Vincent intended? Right? And you just kind of start to fit it together, and you always kind of keep your grout lines, your space in between your tesserae or your tile. You want to keep it kind of consistent. You want to, you don't want really touching because you do want space to get the grout in there. But see how that starts to form? And you can go back and cut these pieces like that. And so you can go back and cut pieces smaller and fill out, again, to your heart's content, as much detail as you have patience for. So that is pretty much the layout. Give you a little hack that I learned is I believe it's called the contact face method, or I call it the tape face method. It allows you to actually lay out all your pieces like this, and then without gluing it at first. Okay, so it's also kind of nerve-wracking. And you got to make sure it's on a table where the dog's not going to knock it over, or like somebody's not going to mess it up, because this stuff is fragile, and if you bump it, it could move. So you got to make sure it's going to be somewhere safe for the time that you're laying it out. But once you do that, you can use, let me go grab it. It's kind of like a big fat roll of packing tape. Let me grab it just a sec. So this is actually called mosaic tape. And see how big that roll is? It's like an 8-inch roll. And it's kind of thick. And it allows you to, right? It allows you to like lay out this whole thing and then tape over the face, okay? And then make sure each piece is, stuck, adhering to that tape. But then once you do that, you can lift it up, take your design off or whatever, and put your adhesive down on your board, and then stick it all back down in one go. So if you're fickle like me and you're indecisive and you want to change pieces around, like I don't know how many times I could tell you I changed pieces around in Bob's face here. I just couldn't get it right. So I was thankful to have that method, so that I could get it just the way I wanted before I glue anything down. Now, if you're doing something more improvisational, like Brian Joseph over here, he knew what he was doing, and he just went for it. You glue it down as you go. Debbie was kind of the same way. Glue as you go. You can lay out little sections and just glue as you go. So that's pretty much that. So that's once you have your design. And again, you can start with a hand-drawn outline, a very simple sketch. Okay, you don't need to be. If you're one of those people that says, "Oh man, I can't even draw a stick figure," well, if you can draw a line, okay, then you can draw a few more, and then you can draw a sunshine, and all of a sudden you got a cool design. So, don't let the fear and trepidation of drawing, dissuade you from getting into mosaic, because there's lots of ways I can show you. Print out, you could transfer paper, you could sketch something simple, okay? You don't always have to make it from scratch. And just start simple, So, let's see, I'm gonna glue a couple of these down. I'll get on time. We got about 15 more minutes, okay. So, I'm gonna glue a couple of these down just to show you like how much glue I would use. Come on. Okay. So the amount of glue is, you just want it pretty well coverage. Using this Weld bond here. You can buy this stuff online too. Just a good little bead. Some people butter it, which means to kind of spread it evenly on the back. I just let the pressure do that, and I know it's gonna squeeze out a little bit, and that's totally fine. You don't want so much where it's squeezing out like over the top of the ceramic, but just like little beads. Use your discretion, use your intuition. Okay, you just want good coverage. Okay, push it down, squeeze it in. Notice I'm leaving a little grout line here. Okay, and then I'll just glue as I go. So there's that one. It's the adhesive. So now I think what I want to do is the last step. It's a little messy, and it'll probably take us pretty close to the end of the workshop. But the grouting. So the grouting is messy and a little time consuming. I'm going to grout this Bob Marley piece here. See if I can get a better view there. Give me 1 second. Oh, right before I do that, I want to show you if you haven't seen it already, I'll show you the Gray Ghost. Where did my paper go? Mosaic that we did. I'm really proud of the Gray Ghost for a couple reasons. So I've developed this pixelated sort of style. It's an evolution sort of out of the Space Invader 8-bit simplicity, and I'm doing sort of these realistic images with it on a bigger scale. But I'm also speaking to Stephanie DiStefano, who's the Mosaic Mirror Queen, and she actually graced us with her presence out there, helping with the Gray Ghost lettering, because she moved out to Smithville a couple years back, and since then there haven't been as many mosaics going up around Austin, and so we're trying to kind of carry on her lineage of using the mirror aspect. Here's Elaine from the workshop breaking up a big piece there. There's Chuck putting up some stained glass pieces in the jacket. There's my co-founder and partner Carmen, hard styling. But I'm really proud of this piece because it engaged so many people in so many different ways. We were laying out the gray ghost face in pixels in the studio for weeks. We had random people coming by from the neighborhood to help out Nick. We had a lot of recycled ceramic in the hat, and also some custom pieces that Stephanie did in her ceramic studio. So it was a collaboration between the pixel style, the stained glass, the ceramic, the mirror, and a lot of this was reuse. A lot of this is recycled materials. Okay, now it's up on the wall for the community to see for as long as that wall exists. And we, of course, received permission from the photographer Wyatt McSpadden, who took this photo in 91 of the Gray Ghost, Roosevelt Williams, at his happy hour gig at the Continental Club. And from there, we laid it out digitally, kind of with the scale and background we wanted, put up an outline, and then 8 weeks later, then you get the finished product. But alongside doing this project, what was really cool is not only random people working together. There's James and Jerusha, those pieces you saw earlier. But we had people coming in and making their own stuff. Okay, these pieces here. Here's a couple more great examples. Just little 1-day, 2-day projects. There's a good use of the Topo Chico Sunshine by our friend Carmen. So yeah, alongside making that public art project, we were able to hopefully encourage a bunch more people to get into something creative. Some of those people were already artists, art teachers, but hopefully it showed them something else, a new way to be creative, a new way to use the supplies you have at home. Okay. Oops. Hold on. Keep my phone back there. Okay. So hopefully you can see that there. So, one more time. You get your grout. Now, if you're mixing a powdered grout, you want to have a mask on so you don't breathe the powder. Mine is pre-mixed. Okay. So I don't need the mask, but I do want some gloves. You always want a bucket of water. Okay, bucket of water. Okay. You're gonna want maybe like a putty knife. Okay, put your gloves on. Okay, get some gloves on, kitchen gloves. Now, another thing you got to be aware of with grout, and these, something I had to learn the hard way, these materials are very temperature and time specific, okay? It's a big glob of grout, and you just kind of lay it on there. It's going to fill in all the cracks. And now ceramic is also very sharp, so it'll cut right through this glove. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the putty knife as much as I can to butter this on, to ice the cake. And that way I'll try to keep these gloves usable for the next round. Try to always reuse my materials as much as I can. I'm not buying new stuff. Basically, grout, there's going to be like a temperature rating on the certain products, and well, they aren't kidding if they say it needs to be between 50 and 90 degrees. They mean it. Last summer I was doing some pieces out here in the garage here, and it was 90 degrees out probably, but maybe the humidity or what have you. I mixed up a whole bucket, a 25-pound bag of grout, turned around to grab something, and I turned back around, and the whole thing had set in my bucket. So I had a 25-pound rock in my bucket, and there goes, $30, and there goes my bucket, and I just pretty much had to scrap it. Another nightmare was the most recent mosaic mural we did over there at the Hill Country Galleria. We installed it in January, and thankfully Texas has a mild winter, but still it was getting down close to freezing one night. And it was actually the very night that we had put up the glass tile initially, so the adhesive. And the adhesive is the same way. The adhesive needs 40 plus degrees Fahrenheit in order to set properly. Otherwise, it just might not work. It might not set. It might fall off the wall. it might do something else that's weird. And when you've got 6 weeks of work that you just laid out up on the wall, sliding down, ready to fall off, you get pretty. I couldn't sleep that night. I went back out and I had a blue tarp. I covered the whole thing and some space heaters, and I had to get the temperature up to 50 degrees for the next few days so that it would cure properly. And so thankfully that did the trick. But you really need to be respectful of these materials because they've all got a little chemical element to them, and it's like chemistry. And if they says it's going to start firming up in 30 minutes, then they mean it. And you got to be ready for the next stage, the next step. Okay, so pretty much once you got that there, you can get this kind. If you've got the excess off, and then you've got it pushed into most of the grout joints. Okay, this kind you can actually wipe quickly. Some grouts you have to wait like 30 minutes. This one you can wipe straight away with a damp sponge, and just damp, just barely damp. You don't want to put too much water back into this constitution. Might weaken it, or it might take too much grout out, but just barely damp sponge. And I'm even going to reuse the sponge. So that I reuse these a lot until they get really raggedy. And these are actually like a natural fiber sponges. They're supposed to be better for the environment. So make the best choices you can. But some materials you just really can't get around using. And so then you start to just kind of wipe it off. And I like to do the buff. They always say you don't want to go like with the grout line. You want to go against it. But I find that it's just gentle little circles. And I'm not using too much pressure. It's pretty light right now. And you just kind of buff off the top edge. And you can kind of use your fingers to fill in any gaps as you're seeing. If you see any air bubbles or any gaps where you need a little more grout, you just pack a little more in there. This part is kind of like sculpting. Mosaic, it's got the design aspect. It's got these really awesome, long-lasting materials. It's kind of like, this is a 2D piece. I would call it 2D, but it's got texture, and it's almost like sculpting when you're doing these edges and you're using this grout that's kind of like a quick drying clay or something. So it's very satisfying. It's very textural. Whoop, I'm gonna splash up on it. There's so many fun aspects to the process. You start to buff it out. It'll be this is my favorite stage. It gets super messy for a while, but grout, it just has this magic way of making your image seamless. You still see the seams, but it just ties everything together, and it solidifies it. It makes it permanent. It makes it feel permanent. So you just kind of keep buffing that off. You just clean your sponge every now and again. Get some of those grout scraps off, and you just kind of keep buffing it. Basically what you're doing at this stage is making sure you don't have any chunks of grout sitting on top of your tile. Okay, it's going to stay kind of foggy and hazy, almost milky with this particular product. But you're getting it out of anywhere that you don't want chunks of grout. Like, I'm going to make sure it's not creeping up over this piece or over this piece. You got to be careful for small pieces that you're not covering anything up. Okay. And once you're sure about the surface of your tesserae, your ceramic or glass, not having any grout chunks, then you can actually leave this to set dry for about 30 minutes. Okay. And if we were to speed this up, if you look closely, you can kind of see like that film on there, like this film. So if I were to speed this up, you take your towel, you would, the reason you don't do it right now is because you can actually gouge out the grout where you want to keep it. So you don't want to gouge out the grout before it starts to set on you. So once the grout starts to set in about 20-30 minutes, then you start to wipe down the face of the tile, and it gets back to clean again. See, notice this and this, the difference? There's no more film there. And then maybe after 2 or 3 hours before it cures permanently, you give it one more wipe with a clean rag, and just make sure that all that film is off. Because if you leave the film more than 24 hours, that film is going to be cured on there too, and that's a lot harder to get off. You probably need a vinegar or some kind of store-bought chemical cleaner to get the grout haze off. I think it's called the grout haze. But yeah, at this stage, you just kind of you can clean up your edges if you want to pack in some more grout to cover the wood. That's an aesthetic choice, up to you. But pretty much that is it. So it's a time-consuming process to get to that point. This piece probably took me 5 or 6 hours of cutting the ceramic and laying it out and taping it and preparing it. But you know, it's basically all in a day's work to do a piece like that. It's about 11 by 14. This Bob Marley piece. So. So we only got a couple minutes left, but I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope that you were inspired. I hope you learned something. Yeah, I hope that when we can all go back and be together again, and you might want to come and check out the Mosaic workshop, and we can do this together in person. But yeah, any questions? We got a minute or two for questions. Let's see this here. Yeah, okay. Cool. Well, yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I want to say thank you to my thank yous down here. I'm written down. So thanks to Waterloo Greenway, obviously. The sponsors for the program, 2020 program, are BBVA, Powell Foundation, Susan Baum Foundation, Waterloo Sparkling Water, and the Word Company. Stay tuned for more Waterloo-In-Place virtual events in the coming weeks. All events are going to be listed on the Waterloo Greenway website, waterloogreenway.org. If you care to share anything, please tag me, post me, anywhere that you share it. And yeah, I think we got a little Venmo link on there if you want to donate to the cause, but no stress. I just look forward to seeing y'all at the Mosaic Workshop here before too long, I hope. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your mosaicing.